the puzzle I didn't have. I had just about everything else, but the columnist was, interviewed me immediately because he couldn't believe that, like, I had put together this, and laid it out in a very pretty much easy format for him to follow, and him having the article there, he was pretty much convinced that I had to be on the right track.
And then after that, did you head over to Shasta, or
Oh
were
yeah,
you still?
right after that, I decided, well, you know what, I'm going to go public. So I ended up going on Coast to Coast with George Norrie, and shared it with George, and then I got a lot of people hitting my website. I've got emails, and then I got contacted by a viewer who sent me a CD about Mel's Hole and said it might be something to do with my research. I ended up coming out to the West Coast and started looking for, the tunnel myself. But what was interesting is in November of 2008, I was sent an email from a man named James, who I later became friends with after he listened to my interview with George, as I mentioned on Coast to Coast, and he emailed me a story. And this is what was the clincher. He emails me a story written by a man who claimed that he had stumbled upon an unusual basalt volcanic rock formation that led to an underground civilization lit under Mount Shasta that he called Telos. Now, I had never heard of the name Telos, but this email was very interesting. The article was written by a man known only as Brad. But this guy, Brad, claimed that he and his daughter were hiking in the ancient volcanic mountains of Dunsmuir, California, walking off a heavy Thanksgiving dinner from the day before. Now, this is in November of 2008. So after they're walking off this dinner, something extraordinary happens. While they were hiking, they were discussing the folklore surrounding the Mount Shasta region and the Lemurian civilization said to be living in a massive cave city within the volcanic mountain. As Brad and his daughter rounded a corner, they came across the rugged basalt rock with two doors. They stopped and took photos of these doors, when suddenly a tall figure wearing a long robe greeted them, speaking with a British accent. Brad and his daughter asked the man where he come from, because he startled the both of them, and the man replied, from inside the mountain, the city of Telos. Now here is a man wearing a robe, a tall figure, just comes out of nowhere, and then the man said that they had found one of the back entrances to Telos, and then he graciously invited both Brad and his daughter into the entrance. Now, Brad and his daughter, they were curious, but of course they were both frightened, and they declined the man's offer to go inside of the mountain with them. The figure then, as quickly as he arrived, disappeared, but before leaving, he swore Brad and his daughter both to secrecy, never to reveal the location of the doors to Telos. Brad concluded the story by stating that until this time, he and his daughter considered the Lemurian civilization to be mere folklore. Guys, after reading the story and looking at the photo, I jotted down all the notes and the clues I learned from it, and I decided that I was going to look for this rock formation, because as I studied the photo closely, I believe that there were no coincidences in life, guys, that when I got this rock formation with these doors was where J.C. Brown claimed that he went into to go underneath this and find the lost treasure under Mount Shasta. So I believe I had a photo, and I was going to now come out to California and look for this unusual basalt rock formation. So now, for a year, guys, I've gone over the clues, and it was my theory that Lord Cowdray and J.B. Body stumbled upon this rock formation by accident and while vacationing at the Shasta Springs Resort in Dunsmuir, California. And when I came up with why I believe they went out there, I then researched the history of the Shasta Springs Resort, which is located about 3.5 miles north of Dunsmuir, California. And picture this. You got two men, very, very wealthy. One's worth about $40 million. The other's worth about $300 million. They decide they're going to go take a break from their work duties, go into the United States, and they go up to the Shasta Springs Resort and drink the bubbling water there, because the resort was famous for the drinking of Shasta water, because it was reported to have beneficial results and it was used as a remedial agent. So here it was, they're up there drinking the carbonated, sparkling mineral water up there. And I believe that while they were up there, that they found, walking on the grounds of this property, this unusual rock formation. So armed with this information, I decided that I was going to go, to the Dunsmuir area, and I was going to look for this man Brad, who claimed that him and his daughter had found these doors, and that's what I did. I went up to Dunsmuir, and I was able to start asking questions like a detective would, and I was able to find out Brad's identity, and then had Brad emailed by a friend of mine, and then he confirmed the information about what happened with him and his daughter, but he added to it that the doors close off lava tubes that go northeast towards Mount Shasta, and these tunnels bring glacial waters from Mount Shasta to Dunsmuir. These same tunnels are also the source for the Mossbury Falls in north of Dunsmuir. So here it is. These lava tubes go for 11 miles, if not more, leading back to Shasta. So now I figured, okay, if I'm right, I'm going to find these doors. So I began hiking and exploring the area that surrounded where the Shasta Springs Resort was once located. On the second day of my exploring, I came across that strange-looking basalt volcanic rock that J.C. Brown had claimed he had found many years earlier. From the location of this unusual rock formation, it was approximately 11 miles from the base of Mount Shasta, just as J.C. Brown had claimed in his legend, and I am fairly certain, guys, that it leads to an underground city in the bowels of Mount Shasta.
Is this the one in Panther's Rock?
No, this is not on Panther Meadow. This is
okay.
No, what you're referring to in Panther Meadow is there is an opening there that most people can't see, but if your vibration is high enough, this rock will open, and then people will be taken in. A lot of people talk about being taken in. Telosians will come out, ascended masters that will take certain people in there, but the opening will only appear if the right conditions exist. It could either be through harmonics, it could be certain things, elements have to come into play, but there is other openings up on the mountain but they cannot be seen by the naked eye. But there have been a number of people that have been known to be taken in. And a lot of stories come up from Panther Meadow and up further that I've documented. And I've been up in Panther Meadow, and I know where some of these other places are on the mountain. So, yeah, there is some truth to what you just elaborated to. But those openings appear to be more etheric nature, not in the physical 3D. It's more in the fifth dimension that you're referring to.
So I wonder what it would take to get an actual the permits or whatever it would take to do some sort of an excavation or expedition into the mountain like that.
Well, I can tell you, last year I was doing a show in Shasta called Legends, Mystery, and More at the college, at the COS College, and at the time I had just gone public. They had put my article in the Mount Shasta News newspaper about what my find was, and someone had done some digging on the mountain, fairly large hole, looked like they might have had tools to do it with, and the Forest Service were looking for the people who were digging on the mountain because it's on U.S. forestry land. They wanted to arrest the person who had started his own excavation up there. And someone had even gone to the college and was asking if they could have all the copies of my shows because they wanted to see if I had claimed that I had done any digging up on the mountain where this excavation had taken place. So, which was funny because they bought the 13 or 15 shows that I did, at the college, and but I'm still here, so obviously I wasn't the one who was responsible for the digging. You won't be able to get a permit to dig unless the Smithsonian Institute or some people of that nature would be going with you or would be overseeing the dig, I would think.
Yeah. Well, if a company like that gets tied into it, I don't think anything of any significance would be let out to the public.
Well, of course not. It'll end up in the Atlantic or the Pacific, or maybe out in the Japanese Sea where Ramon is, right?
Yeah.
Actually, it's right under my carpet. No, but because I've looked into this myself. The first time I heard your story, I remember I sent you an email and told you about Panther's Rock.
Yeah, Panther Meadow, right?
And so I was reading up on all these different legends and all these different claims of people, and even of people who supposedly live in Shasta that are Lemurian, but they, change themselves up.
Well, I've lived in Shasta on and off the last 2 years, and I haven't met anyone who I could say, was a Lemurian or somebody there who, I've met people that claim to be channeling this one or that one, but when it came to specifics, I could say I personally haven't encountered anyone who, other than can channel Adama, the high priest of Telos. I mean, there are many people in Shasta now that claim they channel, the ascended masters in Telos. But you know what? I take that with a grain of salt because, you need some physical, tangible evidence or see something so that way you can say, okay, now I get it because I have something that I could take back to show someone. It's hard to show somebody an intangible,
Yeah.
So are there any other, what are the other legends surrounding Mount Shasta there? I know that there are several. Are there any Native American legends?
Yes, there are. When I first came out to the West Coast in 2008, I met some Native Americans. I'm not gonna name the tribe, but I will say they're the Salish. I'll call them Salish. Up in your area, and there's many tribes up there, Tom, that you very well know of.
Chehalis,
and a lot of them have casinos. But in any event, I guess that's the reward of, Anyway, but I was told when I first went up there, interesting story is a friend of mine invited me up there, and I was staying with a friend, and her phone rings, and a Native American, and we'll call him named Bobby. I'll call him Bobby. Calls my friend up and says, "Is your friend here yet?" She says, "Who, Stephen?" He says, "Yes." She says, "Tell him I need to talk with him." Now, he says, "I'll be right over." She hangs up the phone and turns to me. She says, "I don't know how in the world that Bobby knew you were coming, but he needs to talk with you." So I says, "Well, who is he?" She says, "Well, he's a native elder from a certain tribe, and told me that he would Sundance in Arizona, and he was, a very spiritual man, a shaman, if you will, but he wouldn't claim to be a shaman if you asked him, but he'd smile if you gave him the title, He goes, "Well, they say I am, So a very modest man, but he comes and I met him, and he says, "Can we take a walk?" So we go take a walk, and he says, "I was told you were coming." I looked at him. I'd never seen him before. He had long hair, just like a Native American would, and he said, "Behind you is Archangel Michael, Saint Germain, and the High Priest of Telos, Adama." I looked at him like, my hair on my neck, raised. And he goes, "But I was sent here to protect you." I go, "Protect me?" He goes, "Yeah, because he says there are a lot of people that don't want, your discoveries to come out. So he said, but I need to share some things with you." So he then went and shared with me the oral history of his people. And he said the native stories is that his people had come out of the mountain, and his people were out of Mount Rainier. But he says Rainier, Shasta, and all the Cascade Mountain ranges is where all the people came out from the hollow earth, and they are descendants of these people. And he called them the Tall Ones. And he said, so I asked him, to describe them. He said, well, his grandparents would tell him about them fishing in certain rivers, and they were 7 to 8 feet tall, if not taller. They wore buckskin, long hair, and he said that they were known to come out, and then if people went near them, they would dematerialize. He said they all had the power of to change from the 3D to the 50, and you wouldn't see them, so they could just dematerialize right before your eyes. And so he did say to me, he said that, everything that you say, because I had explained, what brought me out to California, he says, you're on the right track. He goes, you